A very good evening. You're watching India Today. I'm Nabila, Jamal on social media to give you a roundup of the day's news. As you know, today most of the headlines was captured by protests by Congress party supporting Rahul Gandhi. So for those of you who haven't been following those developments, this is a case of money laundering allegations which the Enforcement Directorate is probing into, which involves Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi. In fact, Rahul and Sonia Gandhi own a company called Young Indian. Young Indian was an NGO that was floated almost a decade and a half ago, close to 15 years ago, to buy over. It was an NGO, but that NGO was floated to buy over this company called AJL. AJL was a company that was running the National Herald newspaper, where they were publishing the National Herald newspaper. Remember the National Herald newspaper that was founded by Jawaharlal Nehru. Freedom fighters at that point collectively would put out their ideas and articles and run. It was run by a bunch of freedom fighters. So it has a strong and a great legacy, the National Herald newspaper as such. And AJL was publishing the National Herald newspaper, and it happened for quite a while until in 2008, AJL decided that they wanted to shift focus from publishing newspapers to real estate. So they completely shifted streams. Again, very suspicious as to why did AJL stop publishing newspapers and shift to dealing with real estate. What was the purpose of that company or a company that was run and founded by freedom fighters, especially that newspaper National Herald that was run by freedom fighters? The company that owned it eventually, AJL, what was the need for AJL to shut operations entirely, even if it wasn't doing well in profits, for it to shut operations and move towards entirely into real estate? So questions being asked as to what was the purpose for AJL to venture into real estate, and what was the need for Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, who are 38% shareholders, they're major shareholders in the company of Young Indian, for them to float Young Indian, buy over AJL, because AJL had debts of 90 crore rupees, but they had assets of almost 2,000 odd crores. So Young Indian company bought over AJL, cleared off their debts, and again BJP alleges that all that money was cleared off with the party funds. So BJP accusing Congress of trying to misuse their power within the Congress and use all the party funds to clear off debts that they personally had as part of their company that they owned, which was Young Indian, and then which bought over AJL. AJL had debts of 90 crores. The Congress party allegedly used party funds to clear off that 90 crore debt. So the BJP questioning as to party funds were used to clear off debts. Did the people who actually donated to the Congress party for democracy, to strengthen democracy, really know that this was done? Again, these are allegations. Nobody putting a finger on this. These are mere allegations which the ED is looking into. In fact, in 2015, the income tax department was probing into all the tax declarations which did not add up. So the income tax department, which was investigating into the matter, has been going on for quite a while, and then finally the ED picked it up and are now investigating in the money laundering case under section 50 of the PMLA Act. So of course allegations are going to be probed into. Of course Rahul Gandhi, being a shareholder, will be summoned for questioning. Of course, Sonia Gandhi will be summoned for questioning. But the question here is really, was it necessary for the Congress to come up with such a massive show of strength and launch a nationwide protest with MLAs, MPs, CWC members flying from all different parts of the country, congregating in Delhi and sitting on a dharna and they branded it as Satyagraha in solidarity for Rahul Gandhi, calling this vendetta politics. So this was the kind of campaign that was rolled out, almost looked like a freedom movement today, with the Congress channelizing all their energies in backing Rahul Gandhi, who's being probed in a corruption case. So, it's natural that opposition and naysayers would ask, do the Congress have their priorities right? We know for a fact that they're obviously trying to support their neta, but instead of gracefully adhering to the summons, going and getting himself, submitting himself before the ED officials, giving out his statement the way he should be doing, follow due process of this investigation, and get out. If you're not guilty, then what is to worry? This is again the BJP saying time and again, not my words, the BJP saying if you're not guilty, what is to worry? And it's a natural question that anyone would ask. If the Congress is not worried about, if they're not guilty at all, then what's to worry about? Why are they so riled up? Why are they having such a massive show of strength and protests rolled out despite not having permission? Delhi police did not give them permission to hold a huge protest outside the ED office. They still held the protest. Many BJP, beg your pardon, many Congress leaders, all big leaders, Chidambaram, K.C. Venugopal, you had several other leaders who were detained, Surjewala, Shama Mohammed, a bunch of the popular Congress faces who protested were all detained and taken to the Tughlaq Road police station, and they were made to sit there until Rahul Gandhi stepped out. Rahul Gandhi went on, the questioning on this case at the ED office went on for close to 5.5 hours. In fact, it seems like there's a lot of questions for Rahul Gandhi to answer. Many questions being posed again on the same front. The line of questioning is, why did you float the company, Young Indian? What was your role in Young Indian? And of course, they will get into further details about why AJL ventured into real estate, what was Young Indian and Rahul Gandhi's interest in real estate, etc. One should remember that Robert Vadra, Rahul Gandhi's brother-in-law, Priyanka Gandhi's husband, he also is not new to the Enforcement Directorate. He's into real estate big time, and he's been going in and out of the ED office, and the central agencies probing into some allegations of corruption against him as well. But nonetheless, as much as the Congress has been protesting vehemently, doesn't seem like the ED officials are going to be coming under pressure on this. Remember, these are central agencies. As much as people would like to attribute them to being a pawn of the BJP or being a pawn of the central government, the union government, whatever said and done, at the end of it, it's the ED who takes their call on probing into who they want to or who they think are suspicious. Again, the Congress asking many questions. How come only opposition leaders are being probed? How come only Congress netas are being heckled and harassed like this? Is there no corruption within the BJP? How come no BJP leader, minister, MLA, MP, none of them have been touched with the ED has never knocked on their doors so long as the BJP has been in power. So is it that the government is misusing these central agencies? These are questions that the Congress asks. Of course, this tutu meme will continue, but this is exactly what grabbed headlines today, which you should know, on corruption allegations against Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi. Sonia Gandhi is supposed to be adhering to the summons on the 23rd of June. She sought more time because she's not well due to COVID-19 complications. So she's taken more time. It was granted as well. So it was Rahul Gandhi's turn today. Now, what he said to the Enforcement Directorate officials, only time will tell us. We don't know as yet. But three officials of the ED, all assistant director ranks, were interrogating Rahul Gandhi. They were questioning him. In fact, what we know is at the ED office, one assistant director who is investigating, the investigating officer in the case is in charge of questioning Rahul Gandhi. A deputy director is in charge of supervising and questioning Rahul Gandhi also simultaneously, and another officer in charge to type out his statement. So yeah, these are senior officers, basically what I was getting at. Senior officers who are dealing with Rahul Gandhi in this case, and they are questioning him on all the allegations of corruption. Rahul Gandhi has also taken an oath to speak the truth, etc. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Enforcement Directorate really finds out. Remember, usually for an ED to step in, one has to file, there should be a FIR filed somewhere on allegations of corruption or something on those lines that are suspicious. But with this case, there is no FIR filed anywhere. It was the income tax officials or the department that dug out some tax declarations and did not find it legit. It did not add up. So the income tax department was probing into any kind of tax mismanagement, and that's when the ED stepped in to look at it from the lens of money laundering. So a lot of questions being asked as to what prompted the ED to take up the case, why revive the case 8 years later. It was in 2015 that the income tax had looked into these papers and there was no conclusion to it, but 8 years later the ED is now pulling up this case. So is there a motive? What are the intentions of the ED? Clearly, on both ends, you have questions being raised. Smriti Irani today spoke at length about how Rahul Gandhi must respond to many of these allegations, and instead of bringing the entire Congress party united and throwing their weight behind him and trying to put pressure on the enforcement directorate, instead of doing that, one must gracefully attend to the summons, and if you're not guilty, walk out with your head held high. This is a kind of slugfest that's happening right now in the country, which has grabbed most of our headlines this morning. On the other hand, a quick note from West Bengal. West Bengal Assembly has passed a bill now to change the governor as the chancellor of the state-run universities and make the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee the chancellor of the same. So this is actually huge. The West Bengal Assembly now passes a bill quite quickly to change the governor as the chancellor of the state-run universities, and now instead of the governor, Jagdeep Dhankar, it will be Mamata Banerjee itself who will be the chancellor for the state-run universities. So this is certainly unprecedented. All right, a quick word on Nupur Sharma. We know that there's another FIR now filed in Kolkata against Nupur Sharma. She's been summoned by the Kolkata police now, apart from Maharashtra also summoning her. Remember, Mumbra police and even the Pidoni police, there were FIRs in both police stations. Both of them have summoned her on 22nd of June and 25th of June. So she sought more time from the Mumbai police, saying that she needs at least 2 to 3 weeks to appear before the police for to record her statement, because she also has threat to life, and she's Delhi police has upped her security, etc. So she's also being very cautious. But yeah, so we know that she sought more time there, but in the meanwhile, Kolkata police also has now filed an FIR. They are summoning her to Kolkata to appear and record her statement on that FIR. So while that said, we know that there are protests all over the country. Even today, Muslims protested in Karnataka's Bidar and Kalburgi over Nupur Sharma's remarks. And speaking of the protests, it's not just India that we're seeing protests by Muslims who are quite aggrieved and upset and angered. At this point, what I would certainly say is, if she said something distasteful, you condemn it. But indulging in protests that are violent is not acceptable anywhere in the world, and I don't think any religion would be okay with that. So it's unfortunate to see this large scale protest which has come down to absolute violence. Clearly it just is counterproductive. Each time that this happens, when you get angry over a comment being made, you erupt in protest and stone pelting, etc. It's entirely counterproductive. And it's eventually the poor man who bears the brunt of it. These rioters get away with it, but it's in this case, to be specific, the Muslims, many of them who are indulging in violence because of a handful of the bad apples. It's all the poor Muslims who eventually bear the brunt, and the backlash from people at large. So it's very upsetting to see this kind of violent protests that have broken out over Nupur Sharma's comments. She said it, you've condemned it, the law will take its course. One should stop at that, but unfortunately we see extreme characters on all ends. Even in Kuwait right now, a quick word, as the Gulf countries is now coming forward to condemn Nupur Sharma's remarks, and that's done. The Indian government, in fact the BJP, has distanced itself from Nupur. They've said that they do not reckon with her views whatsoever, and they do not support anyone tarnishing the image of any religion for that matter. In Kuwait, many people protested against Nupur Sharma's remarks. They in fact sat down in a sit-down protest, etc. So Kuwait government, as much as it condemned Nupur Sharma's remarks, has given out a warning to all those expats that if you protest in my country, if you sit down in dharna or carry out your sloganeering or protests of any nature, then you will be exported. You will literally be thrown out of the country. That's literally what they've said at this point. Kuwait has said that we will send you back to your country if you do not respect the rules and norms of Kuwait. So Kuwait now taking strict action that if you are going to be protesting in Kuwait now against Nupur Sharma's remarks, or any protest for that matter, if you carry out, then you will be sent back to your own country. So expats now will be deported if at all they are seen trying to create any commotion within Kuwait. That's that. Thank you very much for watching.